think I had a bit of a breakthrough with the guy across the road the other day who's actually a developer. Because he started chatting to me and said, "What are you doing, Sue?" And I said, "Come across." And I was showing him the composting and I said, "Do you guys compost?" He went, "No, we're too lazy." I said, "Well, I've got a bin here if you'd like to try it. And if, you know, it doesn't work for you, bring the bin back." So he hasn't brought the bin back yet. I'm not sure if they're actually putting compost in the bin. I haven't seen them. But just having the conversation.
That's great.
So, yeah, anyway.
Excellent. And that's, and I think that's a, you know, it's a really valid way of doing it, that you focused on study for a while, then you sort of took time out to go and delve into your garden, then you came back to it for a while and did some design, and now you're going out into the community. And so there's these, you know, it goes with the natural flow of where the energy is. And I think that makes so much sense. And, you know, it sounds like it's moving beautifully. You said you're going slow on the course, but you're going at a beautiful pace with the permaculture.
Just, anyway, and doing lots of observation and, just talking to people. Even the other day I spent a lot of time sitting on my front stairs just thinking. Yeah. And I realised what I've done in the front, I've got to redesign it a bit, and I'm taking out edging boards so that where I put in a whole lot of bark now, and I'm going to change the shape of it to maximise it and improve on edges and water and all that sort of stuff. So, it's good. It's a work in progress.
Yeah, great. And, you know, the other thing that I mentioned this morning too was about how the design is not an end. You know, when you get to a design, that's not kind of the fixed product. That is just sort of the best ideas that you've brought together at that time. But as you continue to evolve and observe and interact with that space and that design, you'll notice new things and more things to do. And so that constant observation, that's why I always encourage people to create those beautiful spaces to sit in and amongst your garden, so that you are having an engagement with your place and your design, whatever scale that design is, all the time. Yeah.
And even the other day, one of the share wasters who lives in another street, and we get on really well, she came around and we just sat in the garden for 2 hours chatting. You know?
Beautiful.
And
wonderful.
I've only met her 6 months ago, and it was great. So we just, she came around one day. She asked me if she could have some compost and some worm juice, which I was happy because she's got little pot plant. I said, yeah, sure.
Excellent.
That's
wonderful.
Lovely.
Yeah. Excellent. So thank you, Sue. I'm going to hand over to Kelly, and then I think maybe we'll go to Claire for an update and Pam to show us all of her resources. And if Chialita is able to join us too, and I know Edith hasn't had a chance to say anything. Are you able to speak, or is it not today? You're just listening? Just listening today? I'll come back to Edith. So Kelly is the one that says Damon, because Damon is her son, and Damon's one of the Perma Youth kids, and sometimes he joins you on these calls too, doesn't he? How are you today, Kelly?
Very good. We're really enjoying the rain, so I jumped ahead a little bit and planted fruit trees, because this is our time of year to plant. I've done module 4, and I was just having a quick look, and I think I've lost all my work, but I know what was in it, so I may have to redo that. I'm really, really enjoying the course, but I'm going slowly too, because I homeschool my son, and we've just moved to distance ed, so we're in like online classrooms, so that's very time consuming. But trying to spend as much time out in the garden as I can, and it's been really lovely.
Excellent. Yeah, great. Wonderful. So we're hoping to have a Perma Youth meeting this Sunday, actually. So I'll have a chat with you later about that. So anyone who has young people who lives in and around this area, kids between 11 and 16, we have a Perma Youth gathering. We also, for anyone who's in that age group, we have every 2 weeks we have an online gathering, and so we talk through Zoom. It was fantastic. Last weekend there was one. And oh my gosh, there was people from England, Germany, Zanzibar, all over Australia and India as well, I think. And it was just wonderful to be able to have those conversations about how they could be young activists and what they can give into the world. And so they've just got all these projects on the boil, which is fantastic. And I just noticed Chiolita's joined us. Welcome. How are you today?
Thank you. Good. Thank you.
Yeah. So it
took me a while to find the link.
I saw your little note come in, but in being in mid-flow in the process, I couldn't find my way out to go and answer your call. I'm sorry. So I'm glad you did find your way in.
No, that's okay.
And I noticed that we've just got Jane joining us too from Kenya. So hello, Jane. So we're almost finished going around and checking in, and we have a couple of little sharings from Claire and Pam, which I'm really looking forward to hearing. So we're just 2 more intros, and then I think I'll throw the ball across to you two. So Chiolita, we've just been asking how you're going at the moment and where you're heading with the program over the next month. What sort of projects you're working on? Do you have any particular questions about any of it?
Well, at the moment, I've been working a lot on in the garden. So, we had from like probably 4 weeks ago, we had a lot of rain. In Australia, close to Newcastle, 2 hours north from Sydney. So we had a lot of rain. I was gonna get ready for summer.
Is anyone else hearing Chiolita now, or is it gone? Okay.
Yeah. And well, the garden is just going crazy. So I've spent a lot of time in the garden. Well, with the course, I'm a bit behind with the modules, but I've learned a lot. I've been reading a lot of books as well, and reading a lot from internet online. So
excellent, great. So things are progressing and you're out in the garden. That's wonderful. Great.
Yeah, the garden is doing well, and I also joined a land care center here in the area, which has been really good to incorporate native plants.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really great idea, joining local land care groups, local bush care groups, to really dive into those connections with what's happening with local Indigenous plants. There's such knowledge and such experience in those groups. And sometimes it feels like there's a split between permaculture groups and land care groups, but I actually think that there's this really strong connection between them. And when we understand, I think the main issue is that there's fear from the land care groups that there will be rampant plants planted in gardens that they will take away and get into bushland areas. And so as a responsible permaculture person, that we always select plants that are appropriate to our area and are not going to actually do that. And so I think trying to have that conversation in land care to really talk about that and to bring these different groups on the same sort of platform, I think is a really important conversation to have. So joining up and really working in that is a great thing to do.
Yeah, it's actually very interesting because this land care, they have a sort of edible garden section, because they just focus, like the business is just for native plants. So that's what the nursery does, just native plants. But they have this veggie area, and they built in a food forest.
Wow.
And yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, that's
I've got a couple of trees from my house, because I don't know how I got that many variety of plants, because I have probably at the moment over 100 different plants in a very small area.
Wow.
I don't know. Yeah, it's been really good, and I've also learned a lot of which plants I have to be careful with, because they becoming a weed in the native environment, and I didn't realize that.
Yeah. And so it's really great to be linking with those so then you understand and you're not introducing plants that are going to be causing problems to the natural habitat. That's great.
And also where, if I'm gonna introduce them, where to put it.
Yes.
So they know not gonna go out of control.
So I think this is a really important point that, you know, taking the broad structure and thinking of the permaculture designs and principles and ethics and using the design thinking, and then diving deeply into your local knowledge, the local Indigenous knowledge, the local gardening knowledge, and to weave those things together is going to give you the richness you need to get. And it's a lifelong learning process. You never stop learning about plants and about nature and about all the things that, but we start with this kind of broad structure and then we gradually kind of fill in the gaps and keep just weaving our understanding more and more as we go. Thank you, Chilita. I'm going to toss it over to Jane now, and Jane is calling in from Kenya. And can you hear us, Jane?
Yes, I can hear you.
Nice to see you there. Well, we see your photo, but I know you're there.
Yeah.
So, Jane,
yeah,
just as
I'm in a new place. Yeah, so I can't do video now.
Yeah, okay. So just as a brief introduction to Jane, Jane and I are talking just about every week at the moment, planning a permaculture design course in the western part of Kenya, in a place called, is it Kitale or Bungoma that the course will happen?
Bungoma, the farm is in Bungoma, but I live in Kitale. So we are going to get students from both counties, Bungoma and Trans Nzoia, Kitale.
And so Jane's idea is actually to organise a permaculture design course that involves different members of government in all different realms, and also local farmers, local women, youth, and if anyone wants to come and do the course as well, that there is the possibility of going and being part of this program and learning. So we're gathering a really fabulous team. So there'll be Jane will be there coordinating it all, and Jane, I'm speaking for you. You should tell. Come on, you can tell the story.
Yes. We are planning this PDC, the first one in this region. Actually, should be the first one in this region, and we are going to have local government, that is the counties, approaching them for students to come in and learn about permaculture. Right now, we have a program which is engaging farmers called 1 Acre Fund, which actually just sells fertilizer and seed from different seed companies and fertilizer companies, and then the farmers pay in little amounts until they finish before they harvest their crops. If you don't have money, then you harvest your crops, and then the 1 Acre Fund will take their money out of your produce. So what we are trying to do is that we want to educate the communities not to depend on these farms, so that they can just produce their own food and seed, and they don't need this fertilizer, chemical fertilizer for their farms. So this PDC is going to be very important to start changing the mindset of the communities when it comes to farming. Most farmers in this area have up to about 1 acre to 5 acres of land, majority, and then we have those that have 10 acres to 15, and then we have those that are rich, have like 20 to 100 acres and more. So I'm inviting people from all those categories, those who are interested, to come in and understand permaculture techniques so that they can use that instead of just relying on fertilizer farms and seed companies. Also, we want to educate them on saving their own seeds so that they don't have to really buy. So it's going to be a wonderful opportunity for me with my community. And I invite you all to, if you are interested, to have a feel of Africa and also interact with these communities that are going to start first learning about permaculture the first time. And it will be a great honor to have some of you around. just to exchange knowledge.
Yeah, and it would be so great, you know, because we're also hoping to, well, we're not hoping to, we will be offering a youth program, and so my kids, Maya and Hugh, will be helping to work with some of the kids there, and maybe other people would like to work with young people too. So there's lots of different opportunities, both to be there as participants and learners, but also to be there to share and exchange knowledge. So Jane and I are getting some information, detailed information out about that very soon, and we'll send that around to everyone. Thanks, Jane.
Yeah, and the question about when is the PDC, we are hoping September 27th to October 9th will be our dates, tentative dates, if coronavirus is not going to affect traveling. And if it affects traveling, then we are just going to have local people around, because we don't know, we haven't had bad cases here in Kenya yet, but we are seeing signs of shutdown of different items like gatherings and stuff like that. So we are gonna wait. September is still too far. We can't speculate right now. We are gonna go ahead and plan and then wait for the things to cool down, and we'll be expecting people.
Yeah.
So great. September 27th to October.
Yeah. Fantastic. So I'm going to pass over to Claire now, just to introduce yourself and maybe have a little bit of a brief chat about your meeting with Wurunga today. How are you?
Yeah. Hi, I'm well. It's really nice to be here. This is the first time I've managed to make it to one of these, so it's great. Yeah, so today it was quite an interesting day. I finished off module 6, which was all about Indigenous cultures, and really enjoyed learning about it. And I mean, not for the first time, I became aware that I have, just really lacked any education about Indigenous cultures, and I feel kind of a bit ashamed about that. And so I really enjoyed that talk between you and Wurunga, and after watching that, I looked up his website and read a lot about him, and saw that he did journeys with people out into the outback and things like that. And I was just really curious, so I gave him a call, and he happened to be in town, and he said, "Come and meet me for a cup of tea." So it was really lovely. So I went in and sat with him and had a chat, and it was great. Just talking about the work that he's doing in communities and around here as well. And as we sat there on the street, I mean, really, it was actually quite difficult to talk to him, because we got interrupted like so many times, because he's so well connected in the community, and that really was lovely to watch, actually. And really good for me, because that's kind of my focus, I think, at the moment, is building community and connections around permaculture. Because up until now, I've been feeling a little bit lonely with it. It's a big thing, and I've been doing my garden on my own for a long time, and so I think my focus is connecting with others. And I really got that today. So he told me about some of the projects he's got coming up, and I just said I'd love to be involved in whatever way. So we'll see what happens. It was good.
That's great. Fantastic. And the other thing too is that there are a number of other people who have been taking this course who've got together and formed a Mullaney Permaculture group as well.
Yes.
Have you
I need
found them
to plug into that. I haven't. I knew there was a meeting that was going on at the RSL regularly, but then I didn't hear anything about it after that. So
I'll connect you up with them, because I think that'll be a really great group to book into.
Yeah, and I've got time now. I've finished my other studies, so this is my kind of focus now, as well as other work, of course. But so thanks.
Excellent. Well, that was that was a wonderful way to finish off that whole topic, to actually go and talk with him. Someone who's...
It was amazing.
Yeah, great. Wonderful. Pam, how are you going? Are you good to go to share with us and maybe to tell us just a bit of a brief overview too of what it is that you've been doing with all your workshopping, all your amazing programs that you've been running?
So I started off, I belong to a really large church in Brisbane, and started off with one of the pastors starting this initiative around, as we call it, creation care. So encouraging people in our community to get more involved with being caregivers for the world and recycling and getting into permaculture and just being more careful about what they do. And 70 people turned up at the first get-together, which was amazing. And then 80 people turned up at the next get-together. And then from there, I've just been asked, you know, people were saying, we want this more and more. So the next step was I was asked to then do workshops for a lot of people that come along to our English second language conversation classes. So then I started extending the workshops into those groups, which was really interesting because they're very diverse, and a lot of those people, their understanding of English goes from, you know, very little to pretty good. But I had to make sure that I encompassed everyone in that group. And now I've been asked to do workshops for UQ, which is the University of Queensland, which is quite a substantial university here, and they've just started a community garden. And again, really diverse students that come from all over the world to that university. So that's now sort of taken my workshops to a different level now. So it's really interesting because I seem to be needing to constantly adjust and span different interests, different ages, and different languages as well. With that group, I'm now looking at structuring programs for them which are really based around small spaces, doing things economically, using balconies. So looking at things like using the polystyrene broccoli boxes that we get in Australia to repurpose them and turn them into little wicking beds that they can use on plants, and different things that they can do with trellises. And it's going to be a really interesting challenge.
That's exciting to have a chance to do something with the university. I mean, there's so many people going to be coming through that, and the opportunities too to maybe even try and have that as a platform where those studying different topics at the university can actually use that as part of their project work. That would be a really exciting thing too. Yeah. Has anyone else been running workshops already, doing permaculture workshops as part of their learning? We talked a little bit this morning with Lucas, or in your evening, about how he was running tours for like peer-to-peer tours with other farmers, which was fantastic.
By the way, I forgot to say yesterday, I had, workaway.org, I think, the website for volunteering. I was hosting volunteers for 3 years already. I forgot to say it yesterday.
Great. So anyone who wants to come and volunteer with you, to get in touch.
Whenever you want.
Yeah, great. Excellent. So Pam has actually brought along she's developed up these, in a previous life, well actually in her current life, she's a graphic designer and marketer. Is that right? Did I get that right? Yeah. And so she's developed up some beautiful handouts. Well, not necessarily handouts, are they? They're tools that you use during your classes. So are you able to share those with us so we can have a look?
Right. I'll just open up some of them here. So this is one where this is something that I've used for my classes where people don't really speak very much English, so that they can very clearly see what I'm talking about, and I make it easy for them.
Can you double click on it?
Ah,
open that up.
There we go. Can you see it now?
Not yet.
No.
Just seeing your page.
Desktop.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to get back in here and see what I'm doing It's telling me that I'm sharing.
You can double click and press the other share button, maybe. Oh, we're back out again.
Nope.
Okay. Let me just try to go back in there again.
Where did you from?
I also have them ready if that helps too.
Yes, if it's not sharing from my side, I have pressed share, so I'm not sure why it's actually not sharing to everybody. Can you see anything yet?
No.
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 Okay. You've started screening. Yep.
Can you see it?
No.
Oh, there we go. That's it.
Excellent. Okay. So this is one where
Nice.
I'm actually just showing people very easily different types of things that they can put into their composting, and just making it easy for them with green ticks and red crosses as to what they can and can't do. What I found happens with some of these workshops is people bring along their phones and they look at the handout, and then when they don't understand the word, they quickly look it up on their phones. So it was very amusing how there was a lot of sort of nodding, and someone would look it up on their phone and then say, and we'd all kind of work it out together. So this is for people where there has to be sort of a very basic understanding of what we're dealing with. This is the same group of people where it's just sort of understanding different types of mulch and what you can and can't do with mulch. And again, people would just look up information on their phones at the same time. And just again, very basically, the right kind of carbon ingredients to put into compost. So these were all designed for workshops where people have very limited understanding of English. And this is another one, what to do into your compost. And then moving on to one that I did around all the different types of spaces that you can use. This is actually my balcony. At one point, I had 4 varieties of capsicum, 7 varieties of tomatoes, 2 varieties of passion fruit, 3 varieties of strawberries, lettuces, broccoli, beans, catgrass, all kinds of herbs. It was just, chock-a-block full of all different kinds of vegetables and things, just to prove to people that actually it's really possible to use a small space and still be able to generate enough food for your family. And I'd really encourage everybody to use heritage seeds. So a lot of what you're seeing in these pictures are actually amazing fruit and vegetables from Green Harvest up in Mullaney. I like to buy all of their seeds. And it really helped people to realize that there's really no excuse. Anybody can do it, because this balcony space is really just a couple of meters. And then so just talking about composting and different methods that you can use for composting. And then these are all photographs. I like to do all my own photographs because I find these days it's so expensive to be using professional photography or even just purchasing images online. So all these photographs were taken up in Mullaney, and it's really useful. I go everywhere with my camera to all the community gardens and take photographs of all kinds of things, and then I find it's really useful for my handouts just to be able to source my own photos. And then this last one, again, just sort of using a lot of my own photography. I go to places also like the botanical gardens, and this was just one explaining about all the different types of good insects. probably on your screens you can't really see the insects terribly well in there, but I have done a lot of photographs of different types of insects, and seem to be going through a phase of that at the moment, because one of my latest workshops is on pest control, natural pest control. So I'm building up a library of caterpillars and bugs if anybody needs any photographs.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, so that's just an idea of some of the things I've been doing.
That's fantastic. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Pam?
That was a beautiful presentation. Can you share some of those with us so that we can also use them, like understanding about the techniques of mulching, and also doing just understanding how you have done it. It really looks awesome and simple and learnable. So I would love to have a little bit of that in my library too.
I think it's the reason. The reason
composting is very simple and nice.
Thank you, Jane.
Yeah, just beautiful, Pam. And I invited Pam to come and share with us those today, because I think it's wonderful that what she's done is gone and taken all her own photographs of all the local species, local bugs, local strategies that work, the local greens that work for the people that she's working with and the climate that she's working with. And so maybe taking something similar to that in your context, what would that look like? What sort of workshops are you running, and what type of resources would be helpful to explain them out in the field? And so what she's got, she brought in and showed them to me when we had a meetup in Brisbane not that long ago, and they were, it was a workshop, and they were, so they're quite large size, that she's printed them out and actually laminated them so that they will last for a really long time, and you can take them out in the garden, and they can get a bit muddy and people can work with them while they're going around the garden, and then they can just be wiped off and used again for another workshop. So really very clear information and nicely laid out, but very, very particular to the work that you're doing, and that so it makes sense for people, and I think that's great. Does anyone have any ideas of how they might be inspired from that and do something of their own, what they might do in that kind of regard?
Probably someday, me and Edith and Julian, another guy, we're thinking making something like that, like teaching people or something like that. I don't know, it's an idea, but probably after this course, this master course, we will start something serious, to make a living out of it or something.
Yeah, we are thinking about it, and I don't know if you are able to hear me now.
Yes.
Yes, finally. Okay, great. Last week, I was asked by a biology teacher in the high school that heard about me doing a permaculture master, and she asked me for doing a brief chat to the kids about permaculture, and I was quite afraid because I'm in the beginning and I'm learning, and I felt I was not prepared to talk about something that I'm learning yet. But she insisted that just a few information, 5 topics, and so I did it, and I went last Friday with a lot of pictures, cool pictures for the kids. They were 13 years old, and they were really interested about permaculture, and the teacher was also. So they asked me to help them with the garden project in the school, giving ideas and advices from permaculture. That is a vision that they had not before, and they were quite interested in the designing process. I insisted that the main job is before you start to put plants, and that the design, the sketch, to observe and everything I am learning was the main source to understand the place you are going to work in the garden. And they were so surprised that the main job was thinking and observing and sketching. So for me it was a little strange thing, because I'm still learning and a lot of work ahead, but I was already telling others about what I'm learning about permaculture. But they were really, really interested, and it was very nice to see so young people with so curiosity about that. So, well, it was a experience for me and for them, I suppose.
Well done. I mean, I totally encourage everyone to do this. I mean that's what Pam has been doing as well, going out, from day one, going out and sharing each kind of bit along the way, and then ask a bit more. And like you're saying, you only just started, but you're sharing what you know. If you start to articulate the things that you know already and start to run workshops around that, that's perfect. And, like actually learning how to explain it, and you get that direct feedback. Like if you wait until the end, until you start teaching, and you've not got any of that feedback along the way about, oh, well, that didn't work, or oh, that bit worked really well when I said that, or when I used those resources, or when I showed them pictures, or when I did this type of activity. And so you start to experiment and, on smaller things that, you can build up over time, and you start with the things that you feel confident in enough to give it a go. And, and when you say, look, I'm just learning this myself, but I'm willing to give it a go, they don't expect you to come in and be the grand expert. You're there to share what you know. And it's perfect, absolutely perfect. I encourage everyone to do it. And even though sometimes it's a bit of a leap, to jump in and do it if it's not something you normally do. But I think it's so wonderful. And it's amazing, like what you've both said, how many times little opportunities pop up to
it was absolutely a spontaneous opportunity. The teacher heard about me by other mother that has the child in the same school than me, so it was a casualty. And I said, well, okay, I'm not ready, but this is opportunity, and I don't want to lose it. So, well,
great, because the bigger picture is that it's a benefit to the school, and it's a benefit to the kids, and it will ripple out from there.
Of course.
Great experience to start to learn how to teach it, how to shape it in your mind, and so I always encourage people, just say yes and then work it out.
Thank you. Well, they were really impressed by the no-dig method and the fact that they had not to. It's a rural area, okay, so all of them have a piece of land where the grandma or the mother work, and they were amazed that you have not to dig to put the potatoes and then dig again. The potatoes was the main amusing thing for them, because but you don't dig, and how they were impressed about that. It was quite funny what they put the focus on, because I didn't expect so much success with the potato.
So this is the thing, that now that you've done that, and that by talking about potatoes, that you can start that conversation. And, that's an entry point for you to have that conversation. I find often the conversation is around pumpkin or some other thing. So what is the thing that you can talk about that really does open up doors to shift perception? Because that's what you're doing, really. It's trying to help get that thinking changed, and to open up new conversations, and to explore your relationship with the landscape and with the community in a different way. I just realised it's already 9 o'clock. We've been having such a fabulous conversation here. We're at the end of our time. Are there any more questions for Pam before, or was there anything else that you wanted to ask her before I just show you a couple of other resources that I've got?
I'd like to know just if she was doing workshops around Brisbane, I'd like to go. So how would I get in contact with Pam? If she could just put it in the chat, maybe. Yeah.
That would be wonderful.
Great, excellent, perfect. Yeah, so are you able to share your contact details there?
Yes.
That's great. So Lucas, you will have seen this morning. I just had a couple of books that I wanted to show people. So I'm just reading this book at the moment, which is Who Do We Choose to Be by Margaret Wheatley. And it's all about leadership in the time of, the climate crisis and what's going on. It was written about 2 years ago now, but it's absolutely fantastic. And basically it's talking about how we all need to step up and be leaders wherever we are, in whatever scope that we can. And as educators, as permaculture educators, that's actually what you're doing. And it is about becoming leaders in our local communities, whether it be in our school, in our neighbourhood, street, wherever it may be, to stand up. And like, who do we choose to be? Do we choose to be someone who's kind of getting stuck in the problems, or are we actually here to present ourselves as someone who can help to guide our local community towards some more positive outcomes? And so I really love this book, and so I encourage you to check that out. Another book that I just need to get rid of the chat here so I can see everyone's face. There we go. This one here, Local is Our Future by Helena Norberg Hodge. Now, those of you who have been watching things in Module 3 would have seen interviews by Helena. Helena is actually one of my mentors from a long time ago. When I was 23, I went and worked with her in Ladakh, and I studied with her at Schumacher College, and absolute inspiration to me. And she's running a conference actually in Byron Bay, not this weekend, but next weekend, called Going Local. And she's got David Suzuki, Manish Jain, Damon Gameau from the 2040 movie. And her and I are going to be on a panel about the future of food, relocalization of food, on one of those days. So if you're around, and check it out, it's Going Local. This organisation that she runs is actually called Local Futures, and she's got the movie The Economics of Happiness, as well as Ancient Futures. And this latest book of hers, which came out not that long ago, actually goes through a lot of the solutions that we need to be looking at to address how we can sort of reshape our future on kind of more that kind of retro suburbia thing as well. It links all with that. Now, on another one, this is another friend of mine who's written this book, Albert Bates and Kathleen Draper. So Albert Bates is a permaculture person since the beginning of permaculture. He's also started up the Global Eco Village Network with a group of other people, and he also started up an organisation called Plenty, which goes into South America, and they support permaculture people there. And this book here, Burn, is all about how you can use all different sorts of resources to create biochar, to sequester carbon, improve soils, improve and help do regenerative agriculture. And he is the most clear thinking person that I know in terms of the whole thing around biochar and about reversing climate change. This is essentially what he's all on about. So the blurb on the back goes, we can harness the power of carbon to replace fossil fuels, revitalise communities, rebuild infrastructure, and reverse climate change. And so Burn, I really highly recommend that. Those of you who are in Australia, you may well have come across this magazine, PIP, which is Permaculture Australia magazine. And you can subscribe to it from anywhere in the world. So there's 3 main permaculture magazines that I know of, which is the Permaculture UK, the PIP magazine in Australia, and also the North American version of permaculture. There's also a design one too. Are there any ones in Europe that you know of, apart from the Permaculture UK magazine? Do you know of any others?
Yeah, Denmark has a permaculture magazine.
Excellent. Could you post a link to that?
Yeah, I just joined the community, so I'm looking forward to get my first magazine. But when I do, I will definitely
post it on the Facebook. Excellent, that would be great. Yeah. So I often. Sorry,
Morgan. A question about Helena's workshop.
Yep.
Do you know if she has any workshop sort of facilitator guides for the local futures sort of concept?
I'm pretty sure she does. I used to run them a long, long time ago, and I'm sure she's updated them. We had study circles that we used to organise. With the economics of happiness, I know that there was some study guides that she put associated with that. And I would say that she's, if not already, she would be developing study guides for this as well. So you could take it as a kind of a book club type of approach and work through it with the local community. Sure. Yeah. And if you look on the Local Futures website, they have an enormous amount of resources there, which is just brilliant.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So in the front of this book, I always do this little one here, which is around the world. So I update about different projects, different parts of the world. And sometimes I also do other little sections in it, like the one that was in this one. I'll just see if I could find it. So we'll write something. I don't know, Jane, you might recognise some of these faces. Do you recognise the other Jane or Jennifer? Maybe not. Oh, excuse me. I'm just ignore my phone. Sorry. The reason I'm showing you that is there are actually a lot of different magazines, and I encourage you to start writing for them, because this is also part of the way to share the story of permaculture, that we're sharing it with our voice, but we can also share it with our pen and our photographs. And so another student who's just recently completed this course has got a couple of articles in Earth Garden, which is an Australian magazine, which is kind of about simple living. So there's lots of different magazines out there. It would be wonderful to start, maybe there's one little snippet. She wrote her first article was about how she built an insect home out of recycled materials. So it was a simple thing. I write about projects we're doing in various parts of the world. And what are you doing in your community? It could be a small thing, it could be a school thing, it could be, any type of project. Approach the magazines, pitch your story to the magazines. Has anyone ever written for magazines before? Does anyone need any help to think about how do you pitch to magazines? Would that be a helpful thing?
Yeah, it would be.
I have a cousin. My cousin is a pitching queen, and I might actually get her to do a little masterclass with me to talk about what are the things you need to do to pitch to magazines about permaculture stories. I might see if I can get it, because I think that would be really useful, because as educators, there are so many different ways to educate. And whether that, as you know, I do the YouTube and I have the blog and the masterclasses and I write and I teach. And it's all part of, I see as the broader kind of thing of teaching permaculture in all different ways. So, and one last one that I wanted to mention to you is this one here called Sand Talk. Has anyone come across this? It's a really fascinating book that I just picked up recently as well, all about understanding a bit more about Indigenous ways of thinking and how to work with communities, bringing complexity and understanding landscapes. And so pretty much he's saying, he challenges us to think differently. Again, it's about thinking, and it's all about, challenging us to think differently to save the world, and looking at Indigenous ways of connecting. So they've got looking at kinship mind, story mind, dreaming mind, ancestor mind, pattern mind. It's all different ways of inhabiting a different way of thinking. And so anyone who's interested in exploring that more I encourage you to get hold of Sand Talk. There's a lot of, I'm hearing it being raised up in a lot of different forms more and more now as something to explore.
Just on that book, Morag, if anyone would find it interesting, a friend of mine runs a podcast called Talking Words Podcast, and she actually just did an interview recently with the author of Sand Talk.
Fantastic. Excellent.
And yeah, it was a fascinating interview and blew my mind. I'll put the link in the chat if anyone's interested.
That would be great. Oh, thanks for sharing that. That's wonderful. Excellent. Great. Well, it is now after 9:10, and it's been a wonderful chat with all of you. It's lovely to see so many beautiful faces from all around the world. Thank you so much for joining in tonight. So if you're just new to this, we do this once a month. So the second Monday of every month, you'll find us here. There's two different options, either the 5 a.m. Brisbane time or the 8 p.m. Brisbane time, whichever works best for you. And if you do have questions beforehand that you'd like me to kind of prepare some kind of response to, I'm happy to do that, or just bring your questions here. And but also bring your stories, bring where you're at, because that's where a lot of the fantastic learning happens. And I'm so delighted that both Pam was able to share her presentation, and also that Claire was able to share what she did today, and Edith was telling us about her school experience and all those things. It just adds such a richness, and we've got an invitation to go and do volunteering in Spain, and we have an invitation to go and join in a permaculture course in Kenya. Gosh, the world just keeps getting larger, doesn't it? The opportunities of connecting and enriching our learning through exchanging. And if we can't get there in person, at least we can come here and have a really great chat and learn from each other around that too. So don't forget to stay in touch with each other, and share what you're doing on the Facebook page in between time, and share any drawings you've got, or plants, or even recipes, like, oh, I've just got this great plant in my garden and here's an interesting way that I use it. And I'm saying interesting because sometimes, like for me, one of the things that I'm eating a lot of at the moment, because there's so many in the garden, are pumpkin leaves. And so people go, well, how do you use pumpkin leaves? So we could start up a whole series of different, interesting ways that we use our plants, whether it be medicinally, culinary. I think it's fascinating, because we all have piece of the picture in our cultural heritages and our backgrounds, and the things that we've learnt from elders who we've had access to. So it's most of the knowledge about those sorts of ways of using plants is often an oral history. A lot of that's not written down. And so the more we talk about it and share it, I think that's where we start to build that knowledge again, and then we can share out that knowledge again and get it rippling far and wide. So have a wonderful day or a wonderful evening, whatever time of day it is for you. And lovely to see you all.
Morag, can I just ask a quick question about the next date? It's the 13th of April from the looks of things. I just wanted to check, because that's Easter Monday.
I will always send out reminders. So the second Monday in April will be the 13th of April.
It doesn't matter to me, but it is Easter Monday, so I just wondered if that made a difference or anything.
I'll keep. For me, I think I'll just keep on that date. It just is easy to keep a pattern. Those of who can make it, and those who can't. I do record these and post them, so sometimes people like to have a listen to see what's happened, and because there's actually a couple of hundred people who are part of this program all the way around. Actually, I don't know, there's maybe more than that now, and 6 continents. So it's a really, this is a really good collection of people. We often don't get many more than this on a call, but I think this is a really lovely number of people to have a great conversation. So great.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to touching base with you in different ways during the month, and to see you back again next time if you can make it.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye, everyone. Nice meeting you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Have a nice day. Bye bye.
Bye.